Donald Trump figuring out how do you concede an election you've already lost? Well, he is tweeting about the, quote, Biden administration. It is another signal that everything else that's going on is theater. As we've reported from the beginning, they already blew through the key federal deadline where all states have certified the Biden victory. And that is the context for a growing backlash to how many Republican leaders, now 126 members of Congress and 18 states attorneys general, joining what is clearly an attack on democracy. The Orlando Sentinel taking the unprecedented step of saying they apologize for endorsing Congressman Michael Waltz because he has come out in favor of, yes, overturning the election. I'm joined now by Christina Greer, professor of political science at Fordham, and Jason Johnson back with me. They are also co-hosts of a new podcast, What's in It for Us? Shout out to the pod. Congratulations.
Thanks, Ari.
Thank you, Ari.
You're welcome. Professor, well, you're both professors. So Professor Greer, we try to be driven by the evidence here. We try to be reasoned. This week has been one of those weeks where the people who warned dramatically about what Donald Trump really is, an autocrat who would end American democracy if he could. He is doing what he says, and what he says is he doesn't believe in elections or democracy. And the amount of support that he's getting in public on the record is chilling. Your thought about both the substance of this, but also something that I think we have to track in civic life, which is some of those louder voices initially dismissed or minimized, this week, proven right.
I mean, Ari, as I've said from day one, especially black women and black female organizers have been the canaries in the mine saying that Donald Trump is dangerous. He should not be elected. Hillary Clinton laid out essentially everything that Donald Trump has done since November 3rd and leading up to November 3rd. I think what's so dangerous, though, is that we've always said, certain of us in the media have said, Donald Trump, has authoritarian tendencies. He will not want to lead, even when it's very clear and obvious that he's lost. But I think where we underestimated was that the Senate and members of the House and the Republican Party would actually aid and abet this nonsense. I think so much focus was on Donald Trump and his bad behavior, his insecurities, his inability to want to lead because he knows that he's looking at Cy Vance and Tish James in the city and state of New York. But I don't know if anyone ever really thought, honestly, that members of the U.S. Congress would actually abdicate on their duty that they are sworn to protect, not only this country, but the citizens in this country, how they would just throw all that away for a man who has proven time and time again that he does not care about them or respect this nation.
Yeah, very, very important. And Jason, some people may not care about the details of the federal process. They may say, well, this was obvious 2 weeks ago. But in fairness, we have rules for a reason. Federal law does care, and it does allow for an extended period where you can make requests and challenges, however unlikely. So whether people like it or not, whether it's annoying or not, part of my job is to say before the safe harbor deadline, well, this is very unlikely, but this is the process. Here's the precedent why the Supreme Court's not going to take the case. We reported that. They didn't, but that was that. We are past that, okay? This is certified. And the attorneys general of those 18 states, it is their job, their professional responsibility, their oath of office to know that, and yet here they are.
Yeah, I'm not shocked by this, and I would argue that Trump is the result of authoritarian tendencies and anti-democratic tendencies of the Republican Party. You can take this back to Newt Gingrich, basically saying Bill Clinton was illegitimate. You can take this back to Jeb Bush in 2000, basically, overseeing an election where there was massive voter suppression. Well, you have to understand, and I think these AGs are operating off of an ideology we've seen. There are a sliver of Republicans, I'm not saying all, I'm not even saying the majority, but there is an ideological core of Republicans who do not think that any Democrat elected is legitimate because they think the coalition that elects Democrats aren't legitimate Americans. They think that Hispanics and blacks and young people and queer people and everything else like that who are core parts of the Democratic coalition aren't legitimate participants in the American Democratic project. That's where this comes from. It's the same logic that said Barack Obama couldn't have been elected president because he had 3 million illegal immigrants voting for him, or he was born in Kenya. They don't think any Democrat who's elected can get there cleanly. They can't get there the right way. So that's where this is coming from. And the problem, Ari, is, look, I understand, as we talked about, there were technical legal things that you can go through, et cetera, et cetera. This is not going to stop. If you've got lawyers, practiced lawyers who've done their jobs in many ways in an excellent way for years, have suddenly decided, I don't care about the Constitution because I don't like the guy in office. Over 100 Republicans in Congress who are going to have that same attitude going forward. It is impossible to have a functioning government if you have a significant portion of the opposition party that doesn't believe the elected official is legitimate. And we saw this with Barack Obama, but they're even more empowered now. And that's the danger of all this. It's not about the complaint. It's the lack of belief in our institutions.
Right. And the Texas lawsuit is a worthless tweet, which has some Republicans feeling the need to note that because they know where it's going, down in flames. Here was Senator Alexander, a Republican, brand new, forthcoming from Meet the Press. Take a look.
That doesn't sound like a very Republican argument to me. I mean, our position, my position, Republicans believe that states are in charge of elections. And Texas is a big state, but I don't know exactly why it has a right to tell 4 other states how to run their elections. So I'm having a hard time figuring out the basis for that lawsuit.
Diplomatic way of saying it from a very conservative veteran of the Republican Senate, perhaps saying what current members of the Senate are afraid to, Christina?
Right. I mean, well, we've seen Donald Trump rule by fear time and time again. And as Jason's mentioned, so many of these electeds are so afraid of what Donald Trump will do once he leaves office. We saw what he did to Jeff Sessions, right? We have never seen a sitting president go after members of his own party. So we know that Donald Trump will help support primary challengers for sitting representatives. He said as much and he's done as much. And so this fear, this idea that these men, largely men, would put Donald Trump in front of the American people is just it's beyond dangerous, actually, Ari. And the problem is there's so many times where we didn't nip this in the bud. We should have actually had a much larger conversation as a nation when everything went down in 2000 in the state of Florida. And we didn't. We should have had a much larger conversation when the legitimacy of Barack Obama was consistently questioned and challenged. It doesn't matter where his father was born. His mother was born in Kansas. He's American, right? We didn't have enough Americans and enough Republican leaders shutting that down immediately. And so here we are. We find ourselves in the year 2020 with someone like Donald Trump, who's been able to just dredge up sort of the most vile and bile from his own party and put that front and center and essentially present that as the new party. And there are far too many people who are afraid to speak out about the real direction of what a Republican Party should be, what bipartisanship looks like. We've had more foreign leaders acknowledge Joe Biden as president-elect than members of U.S. Congress who are in the Republican Party. That is an embarrassment, and it's a danger to our democracy in the grand scheme of things.
And that's wild. What you just said is wild. That's just one more way to think it through. Professor Greer and Johnson, podcast legends in the making. Thanks to both of you. I wish you guys a good weekend. Coming up, the vaccine approval is on track for tonight. And we have the perfect guest, our live interview with the nation's top infectious disease expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, live, coming up.
Dental implants are going to give people that full aspect of their life back.
At Clear Choice, we've been doing this for many, many years, and I think we truly help patients change their lives here.
It's so meaningful to be a part of that impact.
Come in, talk to us. You're going to get an education on what implants are, what the solutions are, what can be done.
First, they're called to a great adventure where they are tested and encounter allies. On the road back, their spirit is restored. And in the end, the hero returns where they belong.
With employee pricing for all, get an average $5,056 below MSRP on the 2021 Jeep Gladiator.
I'll be home for Christmas.